Welcome back, and we're going to do this video on the calculation of due date and something called GTPALs. So let's get started. When figuring out a due date, we actually say that pregnancy is a normal 280 days, or you complete 9 months and begin the 10th month, and that a normal gestation period is from 38 to 42 weeks. We call it right in the middle, 40 weeks, that you need to go 40 weeks is the normal. We'll say, though, a normal development is anywhere from 38 to 42 weeks. The truth of the matter is that we don't know exactly when most people get pregnant. Now, those who are doing fertility testing and all sorts of things can know. Some people absolutely know, but for the most part, there's a lot of people who don't know the actual day that they got pregnant. And so we need to be able to calculate that and figure that out. So we'll look at the first day of her last menstrual period. First day of the last menstrual period. Now this is called Nagel's rule. So we're going to take the first day of her last menstrual period because we figure she did not get pregnant on that day. We're going to add 7 days because that's typically the most common time that she would have gotten pregnant, would be that ovulation is going to start anywhere from day 7 to day 14, with most people ovulating on day 14, but it could happen as early as day 7. So we're going to add 7 days to the first day of her last menstrual period. Then we're going to subtract 3 months and add a year, by the way. It doesn't say that on the slide, but you need to add that in. Duh, she's not pregnant in the past, she's pregnant in the future, so you add a year. So let's take an example here to say that her last menstrual period was June 20th. Okay, at 2020. We'll go back a year. Now you're going to add 7 days, so that's June 27th. Now subtract 3 months, and you subtract May, April, March. Now you're at March 27th, 2021. Okay, because you had to add a year. She obviously didn't get pregnant in 2000, or isn't going to deliver in March of 2020. So that's how you figure out Nagel's rule. Now look at this right here on where it says June 20th, there's a red arrow. In fact, I'm going to highlight this in orange for you. And where this red arrow, here, I want my highlighter, come back here. There we go. We'll highlight this in orange, except it wants to do yellow, sorry about that. So where this red arrow here, and it shows the date of June 20th. Now I'll use green, and we'll go ahead and look at this other arrow right here. See this arrow over here? On March 27th. This device that I'm looking at and drawing a picture on is called a pregnancy date wheel. It is actually 2 parts. It's either made of plastic or metal. There's a back wheel to it, and a back circle, and on that it has just the dates, the May, June, July, August that you see going around with the numbers in there. Then set on top of it is a smaller wheel, they're pinned together, and on it, it has this yellow area where there's a first red little triangle, and that actually says the first day of her last menstrual period. And then it starts out with numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way over here to 40, where there's another red triangle. And this is the number of weeks pregnant on this inside wheel. So if we were using Nagel's rule, we can just do that mentally by saying her last menstrual period, the first day of it was June 20th, add the 7 days, June 27th, subtract the 3 months, March 27th. But with this wheel, I can actually put it on so that this little triangle is on June 20th, and then hold it in place. I don't need to move it. I can actually move that inner circle to whatever date I need, but in this case, we're going to use June 20th. I hold it in place, and I just now look at where the other arrow ended up, and it's on March 27th, and it shows me that's when she's due. The nice thing about a wheel, though, is that let's say today that I'm doing this recording happens to be January 1st, and it would take me over here. Now I can do this in blue right here, right at January 1st, and it's going to tell me that she's at about 22 weeks along. And I can tell you how far she's along at any date along this wheel area. So it gives me when, the ability to calculate her due date as well as tell me how many gestational weeks she is. Notice that fewer than 5% of babies deliver on their actual due date. It's always plus or minus 2 weeks either direction because for the most people, we don't know when they exactly got pregnant. Again, normal pregnancy is 280 days or 38 to 42 weeks. You're actually completely pregnant for the full 9 months. You complete that 9 months. So again, Nagel's rule, subtract 3 months from the first day, add 7 days. And subtract 3 months from the first day of the last menses and add 7 days. And here's an example, another one using 2015. So she had her period on September 11th. You add 7 days, it's September 18th. Subtract the 3 months, you have June 18th. Add your year. She's now going to have that baby June 18th of 2016, or what we call the expected date of confinement. Boy, that's an old term and kind of ruffles my feathers, to be honest with you. Some people say EDB, expected date of birth. It's a little nicer terminology. Okay. Here's a sample of the wheel again, so you can see it a little more clearly. Again, there's an inner circle. I don't know if you see this red one, if it records it. I'm hoping it does. The inner circle is separated from the outer circle, and you can twist it, and then the outer circle stays in place, and you can use the wheel. It's just a really nice tool to figure out due dates. We can also use fundal height, depending on how far her fundus is and how big the baby bump is. So one of the questions you may have in a test question in studying for OB is that the fundus, the top of it, is right at the pubic symphysis. Okay, right here at the pubic symphysis. I just made that in orange, and that would be 12 weeks along. Okay, everybody's about 12 weeks when it's at the pubic symphysis. And the question may say, how much of the baby is developed by now? Well, by that first trimester, everything down to the eyelashes, fingernails, toenails, everything is there. Every organ is made. Now, does it all function at 100%? No. Okay, we know that they don't have enough surfactant in their lungs until 37 weeks, until that fundal height is way up here at the top, where I just marked it at 36 weeks or just below it. So at about halfway through the pregnancy, which is 20 weeks, it should be right about the belly button. Once you hit this 20-week mark, you can actually take a pen or a ruler, sorry, a tape measure, and you can put it right here at the pubic symphysis, start here, and then go forward with it to the top of the fundus. Now, if the top of the fundus was right here where I just drew in red, she would be about 27 weeks, okay? And that should measure 27 centimeters on the tape measure if she's 27 weeks. You don't do this earlier than 20 weeks and use this tape measure, it just doesn't work as well. But after that 20-week mark, the number of centimeters from the pubic symphysis to the top of the fundus should equal the number of weeks she is, okay? And I can then tell by looking at her baby bump, is the baby growing the right amount? Is it too big? Maybe there's more than one baby in there. Is it too small? Maybe our dates are off. And start asking myself different kind of questions like that. There's some statistics on the uterus right there for you to go ahead and read, but I wanted mostly to show you that we can use this fundal height marking to actually tell how far along somebody is, as well as using Nagel's rule and using that wheel. So this next part is called GTPALs, or figuring out how many pregnancies she's had. I laughed the other day, somebody posted a little meme on Facebook and talked about the fact that we have our own language. And they started out and said, patient, 37 weeks, and she's a G6, T3, P0, A3, L3, and it goes on, and that most people wouldn't understand what that means. Well, it's talking about how many times she's been pregnant and how many deliveries she's had, and did they live, and were they term or were they preterm. Now, there's a lot of different ways you'll see this written. The word gravid in here simply means the number of pregnancies, the number of times that she's been pregnant, okay? And I'm not great at writing with a mouse, so we'll fill these in. There's another terminology before I fill out the rest of this that I want you to get used to, and you'll see sometimes written, and we'll see it on the next slide here, is GP. GP. So gravid still means, this is the G for gravid, still means the number of pregnancies, okay? And then P, when it's just written as a GP, this means para. And we're going to see what para is on the next slide, but you'll see sometimes somebody says that they're a G6P3. Again, so I'll do G that way. G6P3. This means that this person has had 6 pregnancies and 3 of them made it past 20 weeks. That's all that means when we say G6P3. 6 pregnancies, 3 of them delivered after 20 weeks. Because the P, or para, this word here means, is talking about the number of events after 20 weeks. But this is confusing because when I look at G6P3, it tells me nothing. It doesn't tell me what happened to the other 3, and what about the 3 that made it past 20 weeks? Were they full term? Were they preterm? Were they born alive? Did they die? It tells me nothing. Okay, very little information right there. So we've come up with something called GTPALs, and we've spelled it out a little bit more, but the terminology on this, the P changes, so watch this, okay? So GTPALs, the G stands for the number of pregnancies. T stands for the number of pregnancies between 37 weeks and 42 weeks or after, okay? So about 40. So there's a term. We're looking at the number of ones that are term, or at the time that the baby should deliver. Preterm is the number between 20 weeks and 37 weeks. Okay, so we'll now use this P here. It doesn't mean para like up here it did. It has a whole new meaning, and it's talking about preterm and going from 20 to 37 weeks. Abortions, the number of pregnancies that ended from conception to less than 20 weeks, okay, to completed weeks. So it's the number from conception to, at the max, put a 20 in here, 20 completed weeks, so less than 20. We'll call them that. And then living is the number of children that were born alive and lived at least 6 weeks. Now, if a child dies at a year or 2 years old, we don't come back and change this. If they die within the first 6 weeks, we decrease the living because that is considered a neonatal period and we're watching it very closely. You'll frequently see this written like this, just a 6, we'll use our 6-3 person again, 6, 3, 0, 3, 3. When we write it this way, this is standing for gravid, this is term, this is preterm, this is abortions, and this is living. Okay, I know that P doesn't look like a P there, I apologize. So you could say that this person has had 6 pregnancies. Of those pregnancies, 3 of them went past 37 weeks. None of them were preterm. 3 of them ended before the 20th week, so they were abortions. You don't know if they're therapeutic or elective or miscarriages, so you have to ask that one. And then 3 of them, which would be the term obviously, were born alive and lived beyond that 6-week neonatal period, okay? That's what that's saying. So let me play with this just a little bit. Let me erase those for you for just a second. And let's do another little example. What if instead I changed one of the numbers to be this? Now this is saying this person's been pregnant 6 times. They've had 3 of those pregnancies. Listen carefully. 3 of the pregnancies end after 37 weeks. None of them were preterm. There were 3 miscarriages or abortions, but there's 4 children. Oh my, how could that be? She's only had 3 that made it to term. Well, because when we talk about gravid, we're talking about the number of pregnancies, regardless of the number of fetuses inside. When we talk about deliveries, we talk about a single event, not the number of fetuses or babies inside. So when we say term or preterm, and it would be obviously the same for abortions, We're talking about events, the delivery event, not the number of fetuses or babies. So when we talk about living, this is talking about the number of children, not events. So in this case here of 63034, there's twins because there's 4 children and it doesn't add up. If you do a little math on these, typically saying that T, P, and A, so 303 in this case, is always going to equal G. I'll say that again. You have T, P, A should equal G. The same is true that T plus P, plus sign in here for you, should equal L. Okay, now if those are true, and in this case, T, P, and A do equal G, so the first one's true, but the second one of T and P should equal L is not true because L is 4 and T is 3 and P is 0. That tells me something's amiss. So I got to figure out why they don't add up. Oh, that would be twins. Okay, the same is true if I come back and take that out again, and now I make L2. T and P aren't adding up, are they? It should be 3, but there's only 2. That means that one of these term deliveries over here was a miscarriage because the A will never add up into the L, will it? Because those are abortions. So if I have 3 between my T and P, but I only have 2 living, then there was a stillborn or a baby died within those first 6 weeks. Now we can change something else here too. Let's just put this back to, back to a 3 for you. I'm going to change one other factor and make that 7. So now we're saying that she's had 7 pregnancies, 3 deliveries, 0 preterms, 3 term deliveries, 0 preterms, 3 miscarriages or abortions, and 3 living children. Well, remember what I said over here is that T, P, and A should equal G. If I take T, which was 3, P, which is 0, A, which is 3, that equals 6. Why do I have 7? Because she's currently pregnant. This means she's currently pregnant. So again, even though they should add up, when they don't, it's telling you to look at it and figure out what's going on. Okay? All righty. So we said that in looking at these, gravid or gravity equals pregnancy. Okay? And then either of those words equals that she is currently pregnant. Nulligravid means never. She's never been pregnant. Primagravid means now. This is her first pregnancy. Multip means that there's past pregnancies. Okay, if she's a multip, she could be pregnant now with past pregnancies or simply was pregnant in the past. And we use the term multigravid. Parity is, remember that para word, means the number of deliveries, not children, deliveries after 20 weeks. Okay, so this is deliveries. Should have done it the other way and had it filled in to just a click. Greater than 20 weeks. Nullipara means that she has, again, never delivered after 20 weeks. Now, this could be somebody, you could be a multigravid and a nullipara. She's had many pregnancies, but none have made it to 20 weeks. You could be a primipara. You can be a multigravid and a primipara. That means that you are on your second pregnancy and you have one previous time delivered past 20 weeks. Or you can be a multigravid multipara, means you've got more than one child. You can be a grand multip. A grand multip means you've had more than 5 pregnancies, more than 5. Okay? Now, Let's do an example here so you can kind of figure this out. Let's use this patient, Shauna. In the first line, Shauna is pregnant for the first time. So we're going to score her, if you're using GTPALs, how you would write it in. She would get 1 under the gravid, 0, 0, 0, 0, because she's pregnant right now for the first time. She has no prior births, no prior deliveries, no prior living children, no prior miscarriages. Now, Shauna delivers to term and has that baby. Now you're going to mark her as a gravid in the, 1 in the gravid, 1 under term, because she went to term. It says she carried to term. There were no preterm, there was no miscarriages or abortions, and she has 1 living child. Now she gets pregnant again. Now this is where, at this point here, let's back up one, where Shauna carries the baby to term and the baby survives. She is now a prima gravid and a prima para, because she's had 1 and 1. Shauna's pregnant the second time. She's now a multi-gravid, but she's still a prima para because she still only had the 1 time, okay? So now she's going to get a 2 in her gravid column. She gets still the 1 for the previous baby. There is still no preterms, still no miscarriages, and she has the 1 living child at home. This is where I said you can have, remember I said that T, P, and A should equal G, and it doesn't on this 3rd row. That's because she's pregnant now. Now this one ends in a miscarriage though. So now we're going to take and put a mark under abortions and miscarriages. She still only has 1 living child. She still only has 1 that went to term, and she's been pregnant twice. So now she's a 2, 1, 0, 1, 1. Now she gets pregnant a 3rd time, but with twins, okay? While she's pregnant, we still call her a 3, because she's had 3 pregnancies now. Still only 1 went to term, none preterm. She has that 1 abortion from pregnancy number 2, and 1 living child at home. She gives birth to her twins at 32 weeks. Is that term? That's preterm. So she gives birth to these twins at 32 weeks. They both live. So she's now still a gravid 3. She's had 3 pregnancies. 1 of those, that first one, went to term. 1 of these pregnancies was preterm. Even though it's twins, it only gets counted as once. And 1, pregnancy number 2, was that miscarriage, but there's 3 living children. Remember I said that T and P should equal L? Well, they don't. 1 and 1, and there's 3. Oh, that tells me when I look at this that there's got to be twins. She gets pregnant for the 4th time. She's a gravid 4. She still only had 1 term birth, but she's had the 1 preterm delivery, the 1 miscarriage, and the 3 living children. So you'll get to practice this in reading stories. And when you read stories, always look for the terminology that the patient is in to confirm a pregnancy. The patient is pregnant now. The patient is so many weeks along in this pregnancy. Something to tell you she's pregnant now, because that's the point that most students miss. Okay? So let's take a look here. You had a woman who had a stillborn at 24 weeks. She's had no previous pregnancies. Okay? She would be a gravid 1, T0, P1, because she delivered at 24 weeks, and L0. So I want you to fill them in when I give you the little information, see if you can figure it out, and I'll show you the answer. You have a woman who has had twins at 35 weeks, both of them lived. She had a spontaneous abortion at 10 weeks and just delivered a viable baby at 41 weeks. Take a moment, see if you can figure it out. Okay, so we have twins at 35 weeks, that's 1 pregnancy. Spontaneous abortion at 10 weeks, that's another pregnancy. Viable baby at 41 weeks, that's a 3rd pregnancy. So we know her G is a 3, correct? She had twins at 35 weeks, that's not a term, so it's going to go in the P column, and it's just a single. Both lived, so we give 2 over in the L column. She had a spontaneous abortion, that's going to go in the A column. And then she delivered a viable baby at 41 weeks. That's going to go in the T column and the L column. So what is she going to be? G3, T1, P1, A1, L3. Okay, so my twins are seen over here in the G. the P, and the L. The spontaneous abortion is seen in the G and the A. And the viable baby is in the G, the P, and the L. Okay? Now, try another one. Okay, you have a woman who's had a baby at 27 weeks, and that baby's still alive. A termination at 8 weeks, that's a second pregnancy. So we've got 2 pregnancies there. Triplets, oh my, at 38 weeks. That's highly unusual, by the way. But that's a 3rd pregnancy. And she's currently 32 weeks pregnant. That's a 4th pregnancy. How are you going to fill in the rest? Did you get it? She would have had a G4, we counted 4 of them. T1 is the 1 delivery at 38 weeks, which was the triplets. So 3 of those numbers go over here in L. She had a baby at 27 weeks, which is going to fill in the P column with 1 delivery and 1 in the L. That gives me my 4 living. And then she had the termination at 8 weeks, gives me that mark in the A column as well as, of course, in the G's. Okay, so that's showing you how to do it. Okay, let's see how well you can do this one. You figure out which one of these is correct. A nurse is obtaining a gravid parahistory on a new obstetrical client. She had a 6-week abortion, a 33-week pregnancy and ended in a stillbirth, so no babies yet, right? A 36-week pregnancy that resulted in a baby girl who's alive and well. What is her gravid para? Well, as we look at this, you're getting a history on a new obstetric client. She's pregnant now. Count that one. That's one of your G's. She had an abortion at 6 weeks. That's a 2nd G. She had a 33-week pregnancy. That's a 3rd G. She had a 36-week pregnancy. That's a 4th G. That takes me to the choices are now either C or D. I can eliminate A and B, right? Remember when we do our perking of questions, you want to look for your keywords and do your points of elimination. So my A and my B would be eliminated at this point because I looked at my keywords, including the fact that she's pregnant now, and I came up with she's a G4, so it's either going to be C or D. So you go on. Other keywords. She had an abortion at 6 weeks, so that's no L, and that's going to be 1 in the A column. Both C and D have 1 in the A column. She had a 30-week pregnancy that ended in a stillbirth, still nothing in the L column, and 1 in the preterm column. Okay. She had a 36-week pregnancy that resulted in a baby girl who's alive and well. There's 1 in the L column, and now 2 in the preterm column. There's none in the term column. So it's going to be D is the correct answer. Okay, she was pregnant 4 times. There were no terms. 33 weeks, 36 weeks is not term, 6 weeks is not term, so none in that term column. 2 in the preterm from the 33-week and the 36. 1 in the miscarriage or abortion column from the 6-week abortion, and only 1 in the living because that 33-weeker was a stillborn. Sorry about that. Okay, so some other terminology. A pregnancy from the beginning of 38 weeks gestation to the end of 42 weeks is considered what? Did you get term? Those are considered term between 38 to 42 to 42, sorry.